কি হয়েছে? ও গড, চলো আমার শাড়ি। Namaskar, hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about something that is very close to my heart. It is about Indian handloom weaves, specifically about the difference between handloom and powerloom. Before we begin, can I please ask you to subscribe if you have not done it already. India has a very rich heritage of handloom weaves, and in my estimate we probably have more than 1,000 different kinds of weaves, and every single one of them exquisite and beautiful work. They truly are museum worthy pieces. Many centuries ago, Indian handloom fabrics had gained a lot of popularity all across the world. Luxurious silk, mesmerizing muslin. Merchants used to come in ships from all over the globe in order to collect fabrics and spices from here. But then came the era of British Raj. When textile mills were established in Manchester, the rulers decided that India should import cloth from England, and they wanted to deter Indians from buying locally produced, handmade, cheaper alternatives. In order to do so, they unleashed unspeakable torture on the poor weavers. Their houses were set on fire, they had to flee their villages, their thumbs were severed. I know I live in England now, and my husband is a fan of Manchester United, and I love England and the English people. They have been very warm and welcoming to both of us. But we cannot deny history, we should not deny history, and I know that my English friends acknowledge that too. In spite of all this, the weavers continued to practice their craft in secrecy. Then we attained independence, and they carried on being at the receiving end of government apathy and public neglect until very recently. Thanks to the blooming of social media, fancy hashtags, Facebook, Sari groups, handloom industry recently has witnessed a resurgence, which is great, but still a lot more needs to be done. Along with the rising popularity of handloom, many unscrupulous traders have started to pass off powerloom items under the guise of handloom. A quick visit to the market or browsing online shopping sites makes me really sad, because I can see so many fake items being passed off as original. Hence this video. Now, I have got a personal preference for handloom. That's a very polite way of saying it. I have a personal dislike for powerloom, and there are many reasons. One reason, of course, is the fact that the kind of art and artistry that comes with handloom, you don't get that in powerloom, and that should be nurtured. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I have been to the top museums in Europe, and if I can swoon over Mona Lisa or the sunflower, there's no reason why I can't and I shouldn't do it for the art and craft of my own country. And the biggest example of art and craft is our handloom. Honestly, India today has so many reasons for us not to feel proud of being Indians, but if there's something that is exceptional about my country, it is its handloom heritage. The second reason is for the personal, for the people who make the handloom. I've already told you how much hardships they endured, how much obstacles they faced. In spite of them, they have persisted. Traditionally in India, weaving is a familial occupation. I have a few weaver friends in my list, and I was watching a video by one master weaver from Gujarat the other day. He mentioned that in their community, children, when they return from school, they keep their school bags, and then they have to go and handle the looms, play around with the looms, even if it's for an hour, and then they go back to studying or playing games or whatever. But they have to get used to handling a loom. Also, if they start young, their tender hands and feet get molded to work in the loom. So this is dedication. Knowledge about weaving in the community is passed on through generations. So it's centuries of history, centuries of developing an art form, and hours of practice, failures, perseverance that goes into making a handloom fabric. And in weaving families, honestly, I think probably all members of the family are involved in this business. There'll be people handling the yarn, dyeing the yarn, some of them weaving, some of them doing other bits and pieces, some of them engaged in the trade side of it. So many people's livelihood depend on this. Weavers are the second largest group of people in India after farmers. And give me one good reason why we shouldn't support them. The third reason is environmental. Powerloom, of course, involves machines, and in any sector where you introduce automation, productivity increases, which means a powerloom can make a sari in a few hours, which a weaver will probably take a few days to make. If that is not the definition of fast fashion, I don't know what is. And I am ethically against fast fashion. I have talked about it in pretty much all videos on fashion that I've done. Unless you live under a rock, you probably know this already, that fashion industry is the second biggest pollutant on earth. And if in 2019, it's almost 2020, and if today we talk about diesel cars, we should also talk about this. If these reasons are not enough for you, there are plenty of others as well. Agreed that a powerloom can make many more saris, but technically these saris are inferior in quality than the handloom ones. No machine can make the intricate designs of the saris. If a sari design is very delicate, very intricate, then a powerloom will not be able to replicate it. Also, powerlooms are unable to handle thin, fine threads, be it cotton, be it silk. So powerlooms, most of the times they use some sort of synthetic thread, can be polyester, maybe mixed with cotton or silk, but they use materials that are inferior in quality, that are cheaper, but most importantly, that are not good for the skin. Also, powerlooms reproduce like rabbits. That's the whole concept of introducing automation in fashion, isn't it? So that you make more and more and more and more clothes, and many of them in the same design. So yes, you may absolutely love a sari, but when you step out, you may find hundreds other women wearing the same one. Do you really want it? So anyway, I think I've talked enough about why I prefer handloom. Let's go into the main theme of this video, that is how to differentiate a handloom from a powerloom. It can be tricky. Even the best of eyes can falter. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I have a personal strong interest in handloom. I've talked to many people who weave, who are involved in a professional capacity with the handloom industry. I've got many such friends. Many of them I've made through social media, but I've also personally been to a lot of handloom clusters. I've been to both Begumpur and Dodekhali clusters in Bengal. I've been to Kanchipuram. I've been to a number of different places where these fabrics are woven, and I've spoken with the people who actually make them. And whatever knowledge they have provided me, I'll be sharing with you now. The most important identifier of a handloom is its inherent irregularity. What is a loom? A loom is basically a structure which is used to weave. In a handloom, the entire process is done manually. If it is motorized, then it is a power loom. Now, because it's a person handling the loom, there will be variations in the fabric, because simply it's not a machine. It's not going to be absolutely uniform. There'll be, if I'm asked to move my hand around in a circle 100 times, it's not going to be the exact circumference every single time. No matter how many years I practice, it's not going to be the same. The inherent feature of a handloom is its irregularity, but please remember that it no way compromises the quality of your fabric. It does not affect the integrity, the tensile strength of the fabric. Your fabric will last for a really long time if it's an authentic handloom made with pure materials and if you maintain it properly. So just because they may have irregularities doesn't mean that they are defective pieces. Rather, these irregularities, in my opinion, add individuality to your saris. So even if the same weaver does the same design on two different saris, they're not going to look the same. So what irregularities are there? Now let me quickly go through how a sari is made. Of course, I don't know the details. I just know a little bit, and whatever I know, I'm going to tell you. For Making a fabric, you need two kinds of threads running perpendicular to each other. There's something called a warp or tana, which goes longitudinally across the length of the sari. I'm not going to throw jargon at you, just for everyone's convenience. I'm going to call it length and width. So the one that goes across the length is the tana or the warp, and the one that goes across the width is called the weft or the bana. When a fabric is made, the threads that run longitudinally, they are fixed in place. I think I've heard at one time a weaver probably works with about 3,000 or 4,000 warp threads at one time. So that's a huge number of threads to work with. I'm sure it's very, very confusing. So anyway, so the longitudinal threads are fixed in place, and then the weaver works with the threads that go in horizontally. Each time he or she wants a new thread of the width to be added, he or she will beat it into place. The amount of force that goes into beating will vary at times because it's a person doing it. The end result is that across the width, the distance between two consecutive threads are going to be slightly different. So they may be same for a number of threads, but then the next one may be slightly wider or slightly narrower. Once again, it does not alter the quality of your sari, but this is just how handloom looks like. I'm going to show this to you if it makes better sense. If you have a close look, you probably can make out the difference. Can you see the irregularities? I mean, textile weavers use some sort of a microscope. I don't know what it's called. I've seen it being used. And you probably can make out the difference in the distance in this one. I wish I had a powerloom sari here so that I could show you how a powerloom looks like in comparison. Let me just fish around. Okay, so I couldn't find a powerloom sari in my wardrobe, but I found this golden fabric. I had used this as a wedding veil. It's neither silk nor cotton. It definitely is synthetic. So have a look, see how uniform this looks. So this definitely is the main differentiator. The next thing that I'll talk about is the presence of some bands across the length of a sari. You remember I told you that the longitudinal threads are all fixed in place. When threads from different yarns are used, yarns that belong to different batches of dyeing, even if the color is same, there can be minor variations, and they end up as barely visible bands across the length. You can see this one, can you see? Also, when the weaving process is taking place, one of the longitudinal threads may snap without notice of the weaver. When the weaver realizes that there's a missing piece, there's a little gap longitudinally, he or she will go back, rejoin, and carry on with the weaving process. But the snapped portion may just end up as a floating thread on the fabric. It's not going to cause any harm to the fabric, the threads are not going to come off, but it's just going to cause a tiny little minute hump or a little piece of extra thread floating on the fabric. So let's see if I can find out any thread bits hanging around. Oh, yes, I'm in luck. See, this is what I mean. Also, when making the handloom fabrics, the two ends of the width are fixed to the two sides of the loom using pins. That definitely will make small holes in the fabric. Sometimes the holes can become slightly bigger. Once again, it's not a manufacturing defect. It does no harm to your fabric. Here, right here. But having said that, sometimes powerloom fabrics can also have these holes. So having these holes are not a definite marker of handloom. But if there are no holes, then they are not handloom. Like you can see, there are holes here too, but they are powerloom. Also, I know that discussing purity of the materials is beyond the scope of this video, but just to quickly add, powerloom fabrics will not be made of fine cotton or silk for reasons that I discussed. They just cannot handle that fineness of natural threads. One other thing that I have to mention here, if your handloom is very good quality, many good quality handloom weaves, if you look at the rear side of the sari design, the rear side and the front side look almost the same. I mean, even if they look different, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a powerloom item, but if it looks almost the same, then it probably is handloom. But don't rely on this only. Have a look at the distance between two consecutive threads that run along the width. That's the most important marker anyway. And then you'll have some bands running across the length, some extra threads sticking out, or maybe extra threads clustered like a small hump, and pin marks on both the sides. I finally managed to find a powerloom sari, and if you look closely, you'll find that it looks perfect, it looks smooth, there's no gap, no difference in the distance between two threads. It's obvious that this one is made in a machine. Now before I end, I have to mention something, that handloom utilizes pure materials. Handloom fabric weaving is labor intensive. It requires a lot of skills, years of practice and perseverance. For all these reasons, obviously handloom is expensive. I know there's a question of affordability when we talk about buying anything. For me, I'd much rather buy one proper authentic handloom sari in a year, if that's my budget, than buy one sari every week or a sari every month. It just doesn't make any sense for me. I don't mind paying a premium for handloom as long as I know that the amount that I pay is going to trickle down and the actual weaver is going to benefit from it. His or her children will be able to go to school. They'll be able to afford, at least at the very minimum, few square meals every day. And that is why I get in touch with people who actually make them. I get in touch with weaving clusters, handloom clusters, rather than buying it from middlemen. However, I know that not everyone would want to spend as much amount of money on a sari or a fabric. And in spite of my personal opinions on powerloom, I'm never ever going to stop anyone from buying anything that they want. But I want you to know what you're buying and why you're buying. Most importantly, I do not want unscrupulous people to lie to your face and sell you fake items claiming them to be authentic. That's all. See you later. Please don't forget to subscribe. Bye.